All right, so I've had some questions on how to do some inside bar plays, and I thought I would make a video today just reviewing what I do and what I'm looking at. So, one thing I do is I just have a list of inside bar plays that I have a scanner, and it helps me to find some of these. And I want to make sure that they have enough volume in them so I can actually sell my contracts to someone along the way. And this is Coca Cola. And so you can see we're looking at the daily chart here. And so when we take a look at the inside bar, the way I have it on here is that it turns it white. And that's through a little script on here that is the inside bar alert. And that just helps me out to really visualize this a little bit better. And then what I do is I put a turquoise line at the top of that bar and I put a fuchsia line at the bottom of that wick. So it's really at the bottom and the top of the wick of the inside bar. And the whole theory behind this move is that there was a bigger move that happened and the inside bar shows some indecision. And so that when the decision does occur, it tends to be a greater move. So what I'll do is I'll turn this into a 5 minute because that's what I end up looking at as I see a 5 minute chart throughout the day, and we'll click on the replay and we'll just simulate the day, and I'll just share some of the things that that I see throughout the day. I'm going to make sure that VWAP is turned on, and I'm going to keep. We'll turn off the bearish engulfing. We don't need that during the intraday. And we'll turn on PSAR a little bit later, but first just want to look at these candles. And so right away, I look for strong candles at the start of a day. And so you can see this is a pretty big downtrend. And you don't want to jump in right away on something. We've all seen that where you jump in and then all of a sudden that thing flies and it's a fake out at the beginning of a day. But these strong candles right here do show a strong move down. What I'm looking for, and I'm watching 6 plays at the same time, what I'm looking for is for that to come back up and retest what was yesterday's support. So we're going to watch this and see what happens here. And you can see on this day, it came back up. And okay, we're going to pause right there. So what we have here for the indicators, the yellow is VWAP, so that is volume weighted average price. And that just lets us know if it's above that line, that means that there's more buyers in at that particular time. The clouds that I have here, the green is the 8-day moving average and the red is the 20-day moving average. And I have found, and I know others have seen this as well, that when the 8 will cross over and when it stays in that, right now this is in bearish territory because the 8 has crossed down under, that it is a time where puts are in play. But I am not in the trade at this point because, let's see, we are 5, 10, 15, 20. We're about 30 minutes into market open. And we want to make sure that it actually tests the previous support and then comes back down off of that. So we'll watch this for a little bit here. If I remember this right, it tests that line. It doesn't always hit that perfectly, but you want to see, oh, in this case, it looks like it did hit that perfectly. You want to see that test it, and you can see the wicks came up and tested it. At this point, I'm still not in the trade. This is 2 testing points, and this is actually the next candle here. If that can actually finish below this area of support, which is now resistance, if it can finish below this, see this green candle here, the body of this candle right here, if it can finish below, then we know we've got a momentum down. And so right there, that's a pretty heavy candle. Some might call that a shooting star, but that's not at the top of the formation. From there, what I'm looking for are a couple things. So that was huge right here to bounce off of that and to reject and come back down. And what we're looking for is we want this to stay below the 8 EMA. And if it stays below this 8 EMA, then we're going to stay in this play for as long as we can. I believe at this point in time, the puts were up about 25%. And so entering in at this point right here and selling right there, I mean, you'd make a quick probably 15 to 20%, but I don't know why you would want to be in such a hurry to sell when you're seeing a heavy candle um, really respecting the 8 EMA. So we're just going to let this play out now, and we will see how long we can actually stay with this particular play. You can see earlier it came down to this point here, the bottom of these wicks, that's what we're going to be watching for our support. So it's coming back up a little bit here. I wouldn't be surprised ever if something comes back up and tests the 20. And when it does, it can usually reject down further. So you can see now we've got a pretty strong move. It's moving below what was previous support there. Strong candle here, but it's well below the 8. And so I'm just going to hover right here. You can see the top of this wick right there. This is now where I would actually start taking profits. I would start scaling out. And then you can see, I'm just going to pause right now and end up putting really just a strong area of, and let's just turn this white so we don't confuse our candles. But this right here, I want to stay with it as long as I can. If it would come back above this line right here, then for sure I would be out, and I would be out with a profit. But some of these will go 200-300%, and so I want to stay with it as long as I can. If I'm diagnosing everything right now, the market at this time was very red, it was very bearish, but you can also see right here, this actually has quite a bit of space below the 8. Definitely a good point in time to scale out. This was at least a 50% gain at this point in time. I think it was 60% right there. But I'm also going to turn on the PSAR. I don't want to teach people to rely on the PSAR, but we'll see if it agrees with the move from time to time. So PSAR stands for parabolic stop and reverse. And you can tell if you were just leaning on the PSAR, you would have gotten into this play a little too late. You would have gotten in right here. And if we're following the retest and the breakdown, we would have gotten in right here. If you're following the candles and how they hit the support from the day before, you would have gotten in right here. If you'd have just relied on the PSAR, you would have gotten in right here. It's not an awful place to get in, but that can be 25% difference in some cases. So now we'll just watch this as it goes. This could actually give us an idea of like maybe when to get out, because if that PSAR flips back over, it's time to run for the hills and make sure you take your profits. So this is now, I'm on Central Standard Time. This is almost 11 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of these moves will go for about 3 hours, and you might see a change in the afternoon. But it's not going to be that uncommon for this to come back up and to test the 20. And we'll see it's still below this area of what was support and now resistance. So you would be safe if you were staying in this play. Now, if you're watching the PSAR, it does look like right now it flipped back over. However, I am watching the 8 EMA. And so this is a little bit sometimes where the PSAR is nice, but it can give some false indications throughout a day. This definitely gets you to watch, because if you're not taking profits at this point, then you might just be getting greedy. So let's see. We're getting closer to noon, 4 hours into our day. But if you remember, I used this line to say, this white line of resistance, that I would definitely get out at this point, and you can see it still had further to go. Coca-Cola had just announced that they were pulling out of Russia, and as much as we would support that move, it does end up costing them some revenue. And so that might be a reason behind this move. Now you can see these candles are getting less pronounced. They're getting pretty thin. And so you can see the downward momentum has stopped. And so you want to get out, at the right point in time. You don't want to get out too late. You want to maximize your profits. Um, so let's see. We're getting closer into the afternoon. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back up and tests VWAP. So let's just watch it here. At this point in time, the NASDAQ, I know, and SPY started turning around and started going green. And so sometimes you can watch these plays to see if they are moving in momentum. Remember, these are 5-minute candles. So each one of these candles does take some patience to let it develop. You can see right here, though, it did close above the 20 EMA. That's also a good time to say, you know what, I don't want to wait all the way till it gets up here. I want to make sure I'm getting my profits. So that's not a bad time to take your profits, and you can always re-enter as you're watching this throughout a day, because these plays do have some moves in them for sure. So at this point in time, it looks like it is a time to really get out of the play. But we'll see if it provides any other opportunities. If we're watching the clock, it's getting closer to 1:30. You can see PSAR can send some false indicators. That's why I know some people use like a 10-minute for the PSAR. Okay, now you can see it came back up, and it kind of just almost touched VWAP there. And now it did. It hit VWAP. It's testing out VWAP. And so now this might be a possible time to actually re-enter if it rejects VWAP. So, all right, there we go. So that is kind of like our line that we used earlier in the day, where we were looking at how it came up and it hit the support from the previous day. It came up and it hit VWAP and it broke back under. So someone actually could have re-entered puts at this point if they didn't have another play that they were looking at in their day, because that's another rejection. VWAP, I have found that that's a very clear indicator, because right now, as we're under VWAP, it literally means the volume that's coming in and weighted is actually to the sell side. So now, yep, you can see we're getting very close to the end of the day. We all know that can be a volatile end of the day. And so from here to here, this was at least a 30% move. That was a good time for you to say, you know what, that actually tested the day's previous low. Could it go further? Yes. But greed can actually really catch up to your account as well, especially when you get to the end of the day. And so you can see there's about a half an hour left in the day. Pretty good time to make sure that you were out on this big move here. So that's really that ended up being over 123% move. I remember I was looking at the contracts. That's an over 100% move there for sure. And you're going to have, I had these 6 plays I was looking at in the day. This one was not, this was wheat, and this was not an inside bar play, but it was something I was watching. Now, IBM was the same. I actually don't have my lines drawn on this one, but you'll be able to see this one right here. This right here was the low from the previous day. And you can see the same thing happened. It came down, it came back up, it retested, and then it broke down. And just look at how it honors that 8 EMA. And when you are in a play like this and you just see that it's just never crossing the 8 EMA, you don't have to be in every play, but you could have been in heavy on this one or on Coca-Cola, because you saw just beautiful how it came back up, it retested, it broke down, and then it just stayed on this side of the 8 EMA, for about 3 hours. And then some people will stay in here until it crosses over the 20. And that's a little tough. I like to make sure I'm just getting in my profits along the way, and I can always re-enter. So like right here, I could have gotten back in on the play, but you could see there wasn't really much left in that play. That if you were seeing how these candles down here got pretty thin and they weren't very strong moves, you want to diagnose your candles. These were doji candles. These are indecision candles at a pretty good area of support. That's a pretty good time to get out. And then when that comes back and over and crosses the 8 EMA, you can see like all these candles are just red, red, red candles until, right here. And so that would be a good time. And in this case, the PSAR looks like that was actually pretty reliable, that the PSAR switched over right here. So that's why I like to see multiple indicators along the way. This was an over an 100% move. I think at its highest, it was a 150% move. And so you might have six that you're looking at in a day, and maybe you only roll with one or two of them. The point is that you would go in heavy on the times when you see really good confirmation, retesting the support and breaking back down under the 8 EMA. I'll make some videos on calls at some point as well. Just a quick little, this was F cell, and this one had a strong move up right away, and I think right here was the resistance from the day before. And this one ended up being about a 50% move, but calls are pretty tough in a bearish market. But a call would have been something like this. It broke up really fast. You watch to make sure that it's actually honoring it, and then you get in right here when it actually closes above a retest candle from the candle before. And this wasn't a huge move. I think in total from here to here it was over 100%, but you wanted to make sure that you were checking for a retest. So hopefully that's helpful.